Yeah, it's close enough for me. It's good enough for this. Jane, everybody? All right, this being the appointed time and place, and seeing a quorum present, I'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. If you'd all please rise and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Jamie, would you please take the roll?
Tina Johnson. Present. Steve Hoffel.
Here.
Katie Majari. Here. David Schrader.
Here.
David Smith.
Here.
Paul Van Langenberg.
Here.
Doug Will.
Here.
Tony Arnett.
Here.
Jennifer Cock. Here.
Looking at the agenda, we are going to have our student board representative move up to the front here of the agenda. They have a scheduling conflict, so to make sure that he gets a chance to speak first, and then we'll do public input.
Hi everyone, I'm Owen Harris. I'm a senior at the high school and I'm just here representing student council. I'm just going to give a little bit of a student update on what we've been doing recently. So our most recent event that we just had was Call an Elf, where it's just an opportunity for all the kids in Watertown to call in. There's a group of us students that station ourselves in the office here at the high school, and we get to pose as elves and they get to tell us their Christmas wishes. And we just say that we'll report them back to Santa. Just a fun little event to get in contact with the community. And that's just our more recent event. Otherwise, since homecoming happened this last fall, that's like our big event throughout the year. We haven't been as active with too many events, few dress up days. We're actually planning this week was pajama day at the high school. Tomorrow is red and green day. And then Wednesday is our like ugly sweater day. Student council is planning to have like a contest. So we're gonna like post on Instagram, get the students involved that way. Otherwise, that's pretty much it for the remainder of this week until break. And then freshman preview night is coming up. And I'm pretty sure that all the different clubs are planning on having tables located here at the high school, which is just a fun event for incoming freshmen to come in and find out a little bit more about their classes and their schedule, and just clubs that are like they have opportunities to get involved in. So that's on the rise as well. I'm in a few different clubs here at the high school, a couple of different honor societies, but just wanted to give the student council update and let you guys know what we're doing. So yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you, Owen. All right, then we will return to our normal agenda order. The next item up is public input. If there are members of the audience, either in person or virtual, that would like to address the board, you may do so at this time. So please wait to be recognized. Online, please use the raise your hand feature, and we will say your name before we turn your microphone on. Ask that you please again keep your name and address and keep your remarks brief. Is there anyone here in the room? Start. Go ahead.
Tracy Finch, 1007 West Main Street. I'm asking you to reconsider bringing back the quarantine and close contact tracing protocols before you made the change last month. Parents who care if our children who have been in close contact don't like this new change where the parents have to call in the school for the close contact to be completed. 1, letters are sent home at the end of the day. Friday, you're basically out of luck. 2, there should be emails instead of hard copies, so that way parents can contact the school before the end of the day. 3, there also seems to be different types of COVID positive case letters out there that is very confusing to all of us. Your symptom check can't always work through, though it is good to have. First of all, a person can have COVID from someone who's showing no symptoms. The CDC has answered that both flu and COVID can spread to others without showing to very minimal to no symptoms at all. The infected person is still contagious, even without a fever. And also, it sounds like not every school is doing a temperature check at all. It's like it's gone. With your option of choosing of whether or not to quarantine their child or whether or not to get them tested at the education center that's free for students and staff is getting dangerous. What is to say that there's a good handful of students who are already positive, but only have minor cold-like symptoms or no symptoms at all? They will be spreaders to the other students that will have a harder time and maybe a more severe reaction, like a very bad fever. And then more students will get sick. Why don't you take a day, for example, after winter break and do a district-wide testing to see how many positive cases you will have in the district? You might be surprised of how many test positive with minor to no symptoms at all. Bring back the requirements of quarantine and close contact tracing, as I and plenty of other parents have been dealing with. The optional protocol is ridiculous. Parents getting anywhere from 1 to 5 or more notifications a week, then having to contact the school if their student was in close contact is getting seriously out of hand. Otherwise, you need to bring back wearing a mask by covering the nose and the mouth, which hospitals and other health people have said it works. The education is your core responsibility, but it does not eliminate your responsibility for the well-being of a child, which includes mental health and physical health. When a child enters into your school to learn, it becomes the responsibility of the school to ensure the well-being of the child. You can claim it is not your responsibility all you want, but the fact of the matter is when they are in your school, they are under your care and you are responsible for them.
All right, thank you. Anyone else in person? And I do not see anyone online. All right, there will be another opportunity for public comment at the end of the meeting. And there'll also be an opportunity in response to the ESSER funds presentations we're going to have a little bit later. Next, we move on to announcements and recognition/communication.
We do have some additional donations to publicly recognize this evening. Again, Skills USA has been working very hard with many of our community manufacturers and businesses, and has continued to bring in funding from a wide variety of those individuals. Tonight, we recognize Blaine's Farm and Fleet for a $150 donation, Silver Lake Auto for $250, Components Plus for $250, Metal Tech for $1,000, River City Truck Repair for $150, ITW Shake Proof for $1,000, and next month you'll see that additional $5,000 equipment donation. State Bank of Reesville for $1,000, First Baptist Church of Watertown for $500, and Clausen Quality Coatings for $500. So good work to the Skills USA team, and we are very grateful to all of our community donors, and we will pass that around.
Have a short round of applause for our donors. Are there other announcements or communications to take care of at this time?
That is the only one for right now.
All right, then we will move on to item 4 on our agenda, which is the presentation about the ESSER 3 funds. Mike Williamson, this on Zoom. So Mike, I'll hand it over to you.
Okay, thanks everyone. I'm going to share my screen so that you can see the presentation, and just let me know or knock on the screen or something if you can't see what I'm showcasing here. With our ESSER 3 funding, this is a unique opportunity that districts really across the country have that have received one-time funding from the federal government. And there were 3 rounds of this funding that occurred between March of 2020 and March of 2021. And getting very unique with the name, they're called ESSER 1, ESSER 2, and ESSER 3. And ESSER 3 is the biggest allocation of dollars received by most school districts across the country. And for Watertown School District, this is a one-time allocation of nearly $5 million, $4.7 million in the third round of ESSER funding. And the stipulation, and there's a few, the stipulation though with ESSER funding is number one, these funds have to be expended by September 30th of 2024. And what's unique with ESSER 3 funding is that the community, parents, staff, students all have an opportunity to provide district's feedback as to how to best utilize these dollars, and that feedback will be taken into consideration as we move forward with plans for this particular round of funding. Sometimes it's difficult to put into context what $4.7 million means. For Watertown School District, a couple of different points to make. First of all, we have a board policy that states that we must or should have at least 15% of our current year's Fund 10 expenditures in fund balance. For example, we, excuse me, we spend approximately $45 million every year on our general operations. So this is approximately 10% of our board allocated or board goal of 15% fund balance, to put that into context. We have non-salaries and benefits here of approximately 13 million. So this allocation of 4.7 million is a little over a third of our non-salaries and benefits expenditures in any given year. The referendum amount that we have is, this year is currently 3.7 million. Next year it's 3.9. This particular allocation trumps that as far as total dollar amount. In total, out of that Fund 10 budget, we have somewhere around 1.7 million in supplies and capital equipment. This is 3 times that. Our health insurance budget for our entire district in any given year is about 4.7 million. And that's the amount of dollars that we're talking about here. So to put the 4.7 million into context, these are the types of dollars and the magnitude of the dollars that we are talking about. So there are different funding priorities that both the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction and the federal government have laid out. First of all, 20% of that 4.7 million, so nearly $1 million, must be allocated towards learning loss. And that learning loss must be allocated towards evidence-based strategies. And so there's definitions that go along with that evidence-based strategies. But that learning loss, as you can see, I'm not going to read the slide here, but it must go towards particular learning loss to different student groups across the district, and can be allocated in several different ways: high quality assessments, meeting just the comprehensive needs of all students, providing information assistance to parents. So many different ways, but 1 million of the 4.7 million must go towards learning loss. As I said, the Department of Public Instruction lays out different buckets of dollars that the funding can go towards. The U.S. Department of Education has expanded that. Typically, federal funds are very prescriptive in how you can spend them. Think title dollars or special education flow-through dollars. There's usually a long list of things that you can and cannot spend those dollars on. Here, though, as the funding has progressed from ESSER 1 to 2 to 3, and as time has passed, we've seen the definition of what ESSER 3 funds can be spent on to loosen and become more elastic over time. So DPI has their initial list that you can see on the top, and the Department of Education adds some additional language that really does provide a lot of flexibility with the funds. For our school district, we have wanted to make sure that we allocate these funds towards our own buckets, our strategic goal and objectives. And so when we look at this 4.7 million, we want to make sure this funding is broken up between the student success, fiscal responsibility, and enrollment growth objectives that are outlined in our latest and newest strategic plan. And you can certainly go online and see more detail about each of those three buckets and the overall objectives that each are meant to reach. So for each of these, excuse me, for each of these particular buckets of dollars, we have broad ideas on where those dollars could potentially be allocated towards, but then an overall dollar amount that we'd like to see put into each of these particular areas. So for student success, you can see some of the ideas there, but that really in all, we're looking at somewhere around 1.9 million of the 4.7 million being allocated towards student success. As far as fiscal responsibility, ooh, the water's moving. I didn't realize that's awesome. We're looking at really one-time operational purchases here underneath fiscal responsibility. This is a way to knock off potential projects that really would traditionally need a referendum and really don't have much fiscal responsibility beyond the one-time allocation of dollars. So that's meeting that fiscal responsibility piece in any number of those operational ways. And finally, with enrollment growth, really focusing on the expansion and the needs of eCampus with those digital learning platforms and any other needs that arise in the eCampus in order to scale that and make it successful, putting $450,000 into that bucket and creating that robust program. If you add that all up, excuse me, if you add that all up, we are about still $250,000 of additional funds that really aren't allocated towards anything yet. But again, with all of these dollar amounts, we have 3 years in which to spend. We have 3 years in which to respond to needs as they arise. And this really is only the beginning of a really great opportunity that we have in which to align our expenditures to these to our strategic plan. Now, we're looking at a couple different sessions in which we can gather feedback on how to spend these funds in appropriate ways. So for example, tonight is a perfect opportunity for the community to be able to provide some feedback or some additional ideas on how to spend these dollars. We're going to have staff and family listening sessions on January 12th. Excuse me. We are in the midst of putting together a student survey to be able to get back, that feedback from our students about how can we improve our schools. And really, when you're thinking about either tonight or throughout January, reaching out to us and giving us this particular feedback, just a couple of things to keep in mind. One, this is one-time funding. Expenditures cannot be ongoing. We won't be able to support that after 2024. must fall within the guidelines. Again, a lot of flexibility, but check out, especially the federal guidelines provide a lot of flexibility, but check those out to make sure that ideas fall within the allowable use. We have to put about $1 million towards learning loss. Funds have to be depleted by 2024, so nothing beyond that particular date. The funds will be used up by then. And as we said many times here, if possible, align suggestions to the district strategic plan or goals.
All right. Thank you, Mike. So this evening, we're going to have an opportunity for public input. I would like to do that first, and then we'll bring it to the board. Before I open it up to public, I just want to mention a little more context for this. So again, there's a 3-year window here through 2024. The board views this as a strategic moment. $4.7 million could make a big impact, and we don't want to rush into it. So, and yet the state has asked us for a preliminary plan of how we are going to spend it, and they're asking for it essentially the next couple months. So we've developed this preliminary plan with the expectation that in the next few months, the board will work with the administration to create one that is far more detailed about what we intend to do. So this is the first step of the planning for these funds, not the last step of the planning for these funds. It's a preliminary view. State wants us to report to that, and so we are doing what they ask. With that said, again, we're going to open up for public input in the room or online. In the room, raise your hand. Online, use the raise your hand feature. Again, please come up and address the board, give your name and address, and then keep your remarks brief. And I'll start here in the room. Go ahead, please.
Rick Wortman, 1549 Boulder Road. A reoccurring theme that I seem to be hearing often about is manpower. The idea that manpower, actually, I feel firmly that manpower can lead us through some of this learning loss by allowing some more individualized attention. Perhaps paraprofessionals to be utilized in a full-time capacity in some of the following areas, like a full-time subs at RMS high school and a floating full-time sub for the district might be beneficial. And I know that we do have some full-time subs currently this year, but maybe an additional full-time sub for the next following years. Then also, I think that special education teachers are terribly needed. That may also provide some more better individualized attention for students that are struggling. Also, the ELL program. If we are struggling with literacy, perhaps this area might benefit from a deep dive into comparable caseloads. And if individualized attention might be a great benefit to this area as well. Maybe something as simple as adding an extra PE teacher can free up resources as teachers don't have to take on extra students in guided studies. Individualized attention for these students are so valuable, and I support those efforts wholeheartedly. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the room? And I do, oh, there's somebody raising their hand. Okay. Chris Finch. Mike, I think you're gonna have to stop presenting, Mike, in order for us to.
Okay, I think I'm off mute now. Chris Finch, 1007 West Main Street. I just want to piggyback kind of off of what the gentleman prior said. individualized learning is very, very important. And not only does it help us get that learning loss, kind of gain that back, but it also help with some of the mental health struggles that we've heard many people mention in the past, where their son or daughter had done well in school, and then with the pandemic, now all of a sudden they're doing poorly in school and they don't know how to adjust to it. That if we can use some of this money to kind of give them that individualized learning, that not only helps them gain that knowledge loss back and that education loss back, but it also kind of gets to that secondary need of rebuilding their mental health. A lot of people have brought up the mental health struggles, and I think that having these extra resources not only gives us that ability to have that learning loss corrected, but also that mental health side corrected as well. So I also support this additional funding to better be able to support our children. Thank you.
Thank you. Do not see anyone else online. Anyone else in person? All right. I'm going to close the public participation part of this, bring it back to the board. Board members, questions or comments? I know we reviewed this at a prior committee meeting, but please go ahead, Paul.
On the student success slide, I don't know if you can go there, pretty much know what these other things look like. I was just wondering if somebody could give me an example or explain a little bit more about learning acceleration.
Yes, I think we could, and I'm not looking at the slide
That's right.
right now, but certainly learning acceleration. One of the things we talked about, I believe at Fiscal and maybe at Ed Services as well, was for example, an online tutoring program that we're looking at bringing back into conversation. So an online tutoring program could, for example, help to accelerate each individual's learning outside the hours of the school day. But that's not the only sort of acceleration opportunity. Some of the suggestions that were made here today, supporting for EL is certainly an area of need and could help to benefit our English language learners that we know were some of our students that were that saw the biggest dip on our report card performance. So we know there is a need for acceleration in that area. Investment in our summer school programming is another piece of acceleration that we would look to perhaps implement again in a slightly different format moving forward this year.
In general, it's a term to put a positive direction on learning.
Right. I mean, I
Yes.
So
you know, I
talking
saw
about how you overcome learning loss, how do we accelerate from where we are?
I could have answered it in that way as well. which
I
is
just want to
accurate.
know a couple of examples of that. So,
Yeah, absolutely. And that is, we are trying to reframe from thinking about learning loss to thinking about how we can accelerate our students from where they're at. So thank you for that clarification as well, Tony.
All right.
Tony, you mentioned this is
Please.
the first step in the process, and
Yes.
we know that the 20% has to go for learning loss, and you generally put it into three other buckets of 1.9, 2.1, and 0.45. Do we have projects in mind that we built this from, or did we base that split off of our strategic plan and try to allocate it towards proportionally to the strategic plan, or do we kind of know that there's a blank that might cost this much in order to make a dent in eCampus, and then we're building from the top down or from the bottom up? And I recognize it's iterative, in which case we're not there yet, but I was just trying to get an understanding of how the other items, the other 80%, got split in this first presentation.
So there was a draft list that the board did review several months ago. And at that time, that's when we said, hey, let's take a step back on this. There's good ideas there, but let's take a step back, take a more strategic view on it. And so, yes, generally speaking, the proportional amounts align to that original list that was presented. But it's frankly a starting point.
Yep, makes sense.
Other questions or comments from board members? Please, Tina.
I would like to make sure that we keep in mind that when we're addressing, the student success, the student learning part of it, that, yes, I want to make sure that we're addressing everybody's learning. One of the great things that I've heard, I guess I'm also speaking to the gifted and talented kids. Just because they're scoring high does not mean that they don't need that, that assistance, just like all the other kids. One of the things that I liked that I've heard at the principal showcase rounding that we did is, measuring growth for all kids. 1 year's growth in 1 year's time at all levels. So I just want to make sure that it's not just based upon a low score, but we're looking at learning for all kids.
And I think that's a really excellent point, Tina. And I would even say specifically one of the points we talked about being exploring that potential tutoring online option. And I think as we work collaboratively together, we will absolutely keep that in mind as we move through. Thank you for that.
All right, any other comments from board members at this time? Dave?
A lot of the public comment was around putting an additional person on our payroll.
Yep.
Which, as I understand, and correct me where I'm wrong at all here, that although dollars can go to that person then, those dollars have a cliff in
Yep.
which that person can be hired, but they do not have any funding after 2024.
You are correct. So if as a part of our
Unless we
plan,
do a little of
identify-
this, which we've always talked about, doing a little of.
Yep, if we're identifying positions, it would behoove us to make those positions a temporary nature of only a year or two, not envision them as long-term. Because there is not the funding, they're not funding long-term. All right, Doug?
So, as far as just the fiscal part of it, just say we go into a contract to put, a different air handling unit on something, and it can't be done till July of 2024, but we sign the contract. Does the money actually have to be spent, or a contract is good?
I think Mike is probably the best person to speak to that.
Yeah, Doug, good question. No, from my understanding, it is that the money needs to be spent by September 30th. So there is some planning that has to go into that, particularly that last summer. If there are funds left, that work needs to be substantially completed by that September 30th, that we would feel comfortable allocating the rest of the dollars to pay off a particular project.
But
So we have $1 million for this learning loss, 2 million for projects, and can we put all 4 million to learning loss?
no restriction.
No restrictions, correct?
Nope.
So we're wide open right now.
Yep. All right. Any other questions or comments from board members?
One comment I have is I hope that there's some marketing and other opportunities for public input. So maybe this is a request to the newspaper to help us get the word out, and we should certainly put it up on our website. And if there's a number to call, just so that we continue that outreach as I expect.
And I'll just repeat what Mike showed up on the screen. There will be both staff and parent/community listening sessions on January 12th. There'll be virtual options for attending in those. So we want to make sure, I think primarily to emphasize those as the best moment.
Correct.
All right, Doug?
Who would be in charge of characterizing all those requests and grouping them and putting them into our buckets?
From the request you mean from the public
Right.
input sessions?
And also the staff, who is in charge of that?
Go ahead.
So we'll capture all of them, and then it's up for the board and administration to sift through those as part of our planning process. Anything else? All right, thank you very much. Then we will move on to our items under strategic discussion. First up is a update on our 4K program. Ms. Borst.
Yeah, I'm going to try to keep it brief to 5 minutes. I think we had a great discussion at Ed Services a couple of weeks ago at this point. There is a PowerPoint, so I don't know if you want to project that. I don't know if it's projecting. But I'll just briefly go through some slides. If you're ever interested in some additional research about early childhood education and the return on investment and whatnot, I'm happy to share that with you as well. And that was in the original PowerPoint that I shared at Ed Services, but I did, in the interest of time, edit some of those slides out. You can see this first slide is just our enrollment trends over time. You can see we did peak around that 2013, 2014 year, and we've experienced some decreases over time. I think it's fair to say that the population of students in our community at that age is lower. We've seen similar trends in some of our private schools as well. You can see last year was our lowest year at 130.29, did bounce back a bit to 144 this year. If you remember, this year we did add a full day 4K. We had one at Douglas. We added a bilingual full day 4K at Schurz. And we had an April 1st deadline if you were interested in a full day 4K section. And the next slide, you can see that I pulled where our enrollment was at on that April 1st date of last year. So we could look for some trends. You can see we had 94 enrollments processed. So between April 1st and third Friday of September, we went from 94 to 144. So clearly a big increase in time. We had 53 requests for full day at Douglas or at Schurz. So at that point, just over half of our families were interested in the full day program. 70 of our first choice requests were for an elementary school placement. So we do, if you remember, have sites at Mary Linsmeyer, Head Start, and Gingerbread. So 75% of the families roughly wanted to be on our sites, which are at Webster, Douglas, and Schurz, and 25 were more interested in those community-based sites. So you can see that we have a range of interest in what folks are interested in. I just wanted to briefly mention some of the benefits of the full day 4K in the district. It's something we have now like I said, two sections, one at Douglas, one at Schurz. And really we're seeing just that additional time as being very valuable. Those academic benefits, early literacy, early numeracy, they have a whole lot of fun learning in those grade levels. Then that social emotional time, we are doing something called pyramid model implementation, which is a really research-based early childhood model of social and emotional learning. We also use family involvement time as a part of our 4K program, which is very important. And then our enrollment benefits. Our goal is to attract and retain families to enroll in our 4K program and stick with us till they graduate from high school. So our hope is by offering a lot of different choices, our families come to us at 4K and stick with us all the way through. I did do a survey to our full day 4K families. You can see overall very positive feedback. My joke is on a day that might not be going so great, to go in and read the comments from families it's a real pick me up when you see how much our families are invested in our full day 4K program, how all of our 4K teachers are really meeting the needs of our students. Something that I felt was really interesting is it said our 100% of our families at that point were intending on enrolling in a 5K setting. A couple of the comments alluded to the fact that perhaps families were looking at other options, including private school options, before they were able to come into the full day 4K full day 4K program. So our hope is we bring people into the full day and then they choose to stay with us as well. You'll notice that we're beginning enrollment on February 1st. We always like to start our enrollment on February 1st because that tends to be when the state opens open enrollment. And so we want folks to be able to apply for open enrollment and for us on the very same day. We've started marketing. Kudos to Kaylin Logan and Jamie Cottle. They did some really adorable short clips of videos. It was a really fun day to go around and videotape for that. So look for those on Facebook. Our plan is to continue with that full day at Douglas and a full day bilingual at Schurz. And then, as always in years past, to run additional sections based on enrollment. When we think about the next school year in 22-23, you know, when we think about adding additional full-day 4K programs, we want to really be proactive and preventative. You know, I know we've talked about learning acceleration versus learning loss. I think our teachers of the youngest and our principals would tell you that some of the students who are the youngest may have been very impacted by COVID, haven't had as many experiences as you typically would. And I think our principals could attest to some of the changes that they've seen in students coming in. We just really want to provide that boost for them early. We're hoping that there will be future funding through state and federal initiatives. However, perhaps the federal initiative this weekend was not moving forward in the way we thought maybe it would. And then again, like I said, that body of research supporting the implementation of early childhood 4K programming. I would love to review that with you at any time if you were interested in that. You can see on the next slide, the Ed Services Committee recommended that we put a resolution that we would offer up to 3 additional sections of full day 4K with our targeted enrollment of 19 students per section. And then again, as always, we would run those 4K sections based on enrollment. Again, we really want to emphasize the choice that families have in our district. Families may be interested in a half-day program. They may be interested in full day. They can do full day with us, or they can do full day at a community site in Head Start. Just to provide as many options as possible, and then make decisions on which we're running based on our enrollment. Through the enrollment process, we always ask for first, second, and third choice. I've often reached out to families to see what really they're interested in doing that. And tonight, that's what we're asking, is that we could approve up to 3 additional sections for full day 4K. On the next slide, it just outlines where this fits within our strategic plan. Enrollment growth, it's such a focus for us. And then those student success areas, that early literacy and that social and emotional learning. And on the final slide, we talked quite a bit. Mike and I worked through some scenarios about what are the additional costs to the district. We estimate an additional $45,000 per full day classroom to cover the cost of the teacher and the para salary. And again, I'd be happy to walk through that with you, and I know Mike would be as well. And I think I'm at 7 minutes. So I'll go to the next slide, which is what questions might you have?
Good, Katie.
How does it determine that we cap out the costumes at 19 versus 18 versus no different number?
So 19 is the number that we've traditionally worked with our community-based 4Ks on. There are sometimes daycare implications as well. They have a different set of rules that they have to follow, including the school district rules as well. So 19 is that number. I think if we talk to our 4K teachers as well, they would tell us that 19 is a busy classroom with 4-year-olds.
Do they have full-time paraprofessionals with them?
Yeah, so we work to cover the classroom with paraprofessional. Within the district, you know, we tend not to hire people who are like the 7-hour people. So we work through providing coverage in that classroom with the paraprofessional during the times that they're in there. But yes, there's 2 people typically in the room. Or one person taking a kid to the bathroom and the other person's in the classroom with 18 kids.
When you figured that cost, did it include the full-time teacher and a paraprofessional?
Yes,
Okay.
yep, the salary on that too, yep. And Mike did a nice comparison of our community-based sites compared to our district sites too, and this cost analysis is pretty similar between the 2. Thanks, good questions.
Other comments or questions on the presentation? Again, I know it was viewed at Ed Services. Anyone else? Nope. All right, thank you very much. So our next item up is our Safe Schools update. I know.
I have a very, very brief update for you today. Not really a lot of new information, but I wanted to stay consistent and make sure if you had questions, we could answer them. And I always like to throw in a cute picture or 2 of some of our fabulous students. What's been going well? We've implemented the new quarantine and close contact notification practices. We have seen lower quarantine numbers, which is certainly not a surprise with that change in practice. We have been able to implement again our COVID-19 testing center. That is open 5 days a week from 9 o'clock a.m. to 3 o'clock p.m. And it has been very busy. Certainly this week, there's been a line of cars every time I've walked out of the office. And we will now be having some holiday hours as well. So we'll be sending out a message to our families and to staff to make them aware of what those holiday hours would be. We know again that that has been a really good resource. And again, those test results have been coming back within 24 hours. We've been continuing to experience a high number of COVID, positive COVID cases in our schools and in our community. We were sitting at about 30 cases a week for about 3 weeks in a row. We then dropped to 29 and then last week 21. So that's a good sign, but the community numbers are still really staying at that higher number. So we will see how this week goes. And then obviously we'll have the winter break and sort of start over when we get back together in January. We have seen lots of sick people, kids and adults, lots of influenza and viruses that have been going around. So we are seeing a lot of absences for both students and for staff. We know that some of our families have indicated frustrations with needing to reach out, as you heard from Tracy tonight, reaching out to WUSD staff for close contact tracing. That previously that was something that was done and then quickly communicated to them that taking that extra step is an inconvenience for some of our families, especially when it could be coming out at the end of the day and families want to make a decision for the following school day. Continuing to experience a shortage of substitute teachers. This week is always a hard week, so we made it through today. Margaret, we're going to make it through the next 2, correct?
That's the plan.
So we are hopeful to have that. As you heard earlier, we do have our substitute teachers, full-time subs available at the elementary, middle school, and high school, and that has helped us tremendously to navigate that staffing situation. We saw some examples this past week of that. Not only there's a lot of articles if you look online, not only are we seeing some unusual student behaviors, they're really seeing these unusual student behaviors nationwide. And we certainly saw some of that this week in the district and in the nation, and continuing to work through some of those challenging behaviors with our students. Really, really glad that we have our grant funded threat assessment coordinator with us this year. She's been a fantastic addition and has helped us to navigate some of the situations that we've had. I've already gone over these items A reminder that you can check our COVID-19 website data, as well as, I check every day that DHS website data. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm forwarding on my screen and not forwarding with the clicker I have in front of me. Tony looks so concerned. I'm sorry. All right,
It's having problems. So what slide?
we are on COVID-19 data. So just a reminder that we are posting that data twice a week, and then again, that DHS website is really, really valuable COVID data. Next slide. Since we have implemented that new quarantine and close contact notification, we have had 77 requests for close contact tracing, and we've had 66 new total positive cases since that time. And again, just as I do every month, I really want to encourage families to continue to use that symptom checker. Again, it's not just COVID out there. There's all sorts of different viruses and the flu out there. Please keep kids home if they are feeling under the weather. We had a household full of sick kiddos ourselves. So next slide is just questions and feedback. Yes, ma'am.
Good.
So how was the plan and expectations shared with staff?
The plan The overall safety plan or the quarantine notifications? So the safety plan has been shared on a number of occasions with staff. One of the primary ways in which we've shared it is by we have created a video with all of our safe schools protocols, which we've asked all of our staff members and support staff to view, and then to sign that they've done that. Principals then have continued to communicate with staff. If we have any shifts or changes, I communicate with staff as well through full district emails, but really the principals are the boots on the ground for any changes that we're making. But there is absolutely an expectation that the staff is familiar with the safety plan. Again, they were asked to view the video and they were asked to make sure that they are following those protocols.
Because my concern is that plan is not being followed with the fidelity that it needs to be, and we need to do better. There have been areas, as far as few classrooms are set up for physical distancing. There's been issues as far as transportation and not having face coverings. I don't know if it needs to be added as a checklist for field trips. There's been things that people have approached me with. The thermometers in the classroom don't match the thermometers with the health assistant. That kind of thing. Visitor and activity checks. That hasn't been, really solidified there. We have a prioritization list that says when cases are low, we will, the physical distancing won't be as, that's the first one. And although we say our cases are high, we're already zooming to number one in the prioritization list, and we're not there. Parents are expecting us to follow through on this plan. Our community needs us to follow through on this plan and how it's implemented. I don't know if there needs to be another review after, break, but parents are expecting us to do what we say we're going to do.
Well, I will, certainly the principals are here and heard that feedback as well. We'll certainly discuss that at cabinet, and perhaps in January when we return is a very good time to revisit some of those key safety protocols. There is absolutely an expectation that they are being followed. So we are always navigating that sort of push and pull, and we will certainly revisit that with staff. So thank you.
Other board members' comments or questions on this?
Somewhat, what do you call it, tangential to this, you mentioned one of your slides, what's been challenging, and you mentioned, just nationwide behavior issues. I forget how you put it in this thing.
Yeah.
We've had the Dodge County in place since roughly September, October. Can anybody comment that this is not per se safe schools as much as, is it getting used? How often is it getting used? Are we seeing cases that we wanted it to address being addressed?
Yeah, great question.
Yep, I can share a little bit of information. We had a slow start in the beginning. We had one or two families that were trying to access the services. The last I checked, we were in the 8 to 10 range.
Okay.
So we're seeing an uptake in it. We're seeing interested families, and all of our schools are aware of what the process is to get a family connected with the open door.
Okay.
And our goal was about 10 to 11 families served, correct?
In a given day, right? So you could have more families, depending on how often they were seeing that family.
Thank you.
All right. Other comments or questions from board members? Hearing none. All right, then we will, thank you very much. We will move on to our next topic, which is our safety drill evaluations and school security assessments.
I'm sorry. That is me. I was waiting for something to appear on the screen, but I don't think we have anything to share with you there. The board was given the safety drill evaluations. As you know, we complete our safety drill evaluations at least on a semester basis, but our target is quarterly. And then we bring those before the board for approval as is required by the Department of Justice. So then we upload those to them. So you have the opportunity to view those and see we're continuing to do our safety drills. We will do 2 more safety drills going into second semester, so 1 each quarter. And we will be changing the format of those drills to make sure that they are addressing some more additional issues other than what our students have seen in the last few drills. So the safety team has been working hard on that, and you will see that in the future. We also, every 3 years, need to do the safety team or the safety assessments of our sites. And that's the other information that you see there for your approval, that each site has been reviewed, and Mike Williamson collaborated with the principals on that to ensure that those safety assessments are in order as well. Any questions on that?
Comments or questions to the board? Again, this is standard operating procedure. We do test these scenarios throughout the year. Every year, we've been doing this for quite a long time. I'll emphasize the value of our partnership with the Watertown Police Department. Valuable contributor to this process.
How much time does it take away from? I mean, it varies from case to case, but if we do, what do we say, 3, 4 years?
We do typically 4 a year.
4 a year, that adds up to a typical kid
It,
being in
well,
a safety drill for an entire day, a half a day.
they usually are relatively brief. Some are going to be a little bit longer. So some of the drills we have coming up in the second semester will last a little bit longer.
Sometimes here we're going to Maranatha and taking a hike.
Correct. Correct. So we can have some of those longer drills that could take up to 3 hours, but for the most part, it's done in less than a class period. So you're looking at probably between 4 to 6 hours at the very most over the course of the school year.
And the teachers and staff know they're coming, know that if I'm teaching government in 3rd period,
Yeah.
I'm gonna lose that period.
Yeah.
They see it coming and
We coordinate it so it's on the same week within the district, and we try to have it on the same day, but sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. Each principal, and then I send a family letter, then each principal does the drill, then each principal sends a letter home to their families that the drill has been done, and teachers are in the loop with all of that communication as well. And I think very, very accustomed to the practice. And if the teachers, however, spend quite a bit more time. We do a training at the beginning of every school year on updates on the safety plan and updates on our protocols for new staff as well as for veteran staff.
Tina?
The full content that we have, so is that what the assessment part of it, is that what is reviewed every 3 years?
Correct, yes.
Okay, because I noticed like some of the names aren't correct on there and they, and things like that. So I didn't know how current that needs to be or how that works.
That is what is reviewed every year. And Mike went through that with the principals at every site. So I'm not sure which one you're looking at.
Yeah, there's,
Thank you,
sorry, do you
Mike.
mind if I interject? The top portion before we submit to the state needs to be updated with my name, the current principal's names, the enrollments. Really, the meat of what was reviewed though was the comments throughout versus the top portion.
All right. Anything else? Okay, thank you very much. Next, we'll move on to reports. Start with the superintendent report.
All right, so you can go back to that PowerPoint again for me, Tyler. And this will also be very, very brief. Another reminder that we do have our clinic open and we will have holiday or our COVID-19 testing available, and we will have holiday hours available for that. That's on the slide there, Tyler. And then the next. Still adapting to the clicker. The next slide, please join us. Again, one of the events that we were not able to offer last year was Trivia Night. It is back this year with, I think, a very positive theme and certainly appropriate theme of Everyday Heroes. That's going to be Saturday, February 5th If you haven't joined us at that before, it is really a fantastic night, and all of the funds go to support our Booster Club. And yeah, show off your smarts or lack thereof. It's a lot of fun. Okay, the Gosling Career Fair is another event that we had online last year, virtually last year. The year before, it was the last in-person event we had before the shutdown of the schools. So we are very glad to bring that Gosling Career Fair back in person. I would also say that Margaret Brady, in cooperation with Sarah Tarpey, applied for a grant to support that for $3,000 additional dollars. And we are very excited to how that is going to additionally support that career fair. It's typically really, really, really well attended. And our community businesses really appreciate the opportunity to connect with our students. And our students really appreciate the opportunity to connect with our businesses and manufacturers. And we also have secondary schools, post-secondary schools represented there as well.
Can I make a comment? about
You can absolutely.
it? If you haven't been there yet, you gotta go. It's really pretty cool. You'd be amazed all of what's going on here. So it's really good. I've been there the last couple of times. It's great.
And lots of the vendors have snacks and other items that you can take with you. So it's definitely worth it for nothing else than a free Tootsie Roll. It is very impressive. It really is. Thank you, Paul.
Who's leading it this year?
Jesse Domer and Sarah Tarpey coordinate to put that event together.
And it's being led by the district more so than the chamber.
The chamber is
or-
no, the chamber is a partner in this as well. This is very much a collaborative effort between the chamber and the school district. Good question. Thank you for helping me highlight that. Another event that came back this year was our St. Bernard's Holiday Concert. Always just absolutely spectacular. We've had several other concerts that have taken place over this past month, and all of them have been fabulous. Many other holiday events. I started trying to put some additional pictures in there, but there are things going on at all of our sites. Our students and our staff are working to support our students and families in the community in such a wide variety of ways. I would highlight the Adopt a Gosling program here at the high school, where you have the opportunity to adopt a Gosling and send home with a student in need a blanket, earbuds, a gift card for a local business, a pair of socks, and each one of those is going to go home with a winter hat and winter gloves. If you're looking for a way to rekindle some holiday spirit, I encourage you to reach out to WHS and adopt a Gosling. The time on that is short, but it's really a fantastic opportunity to get a nice warm holiday feeling as we get ready to go into the holidays in a few very short days. And in case I haven't told you lately, we are hiring bus drivers. If you are interested in driving a bus, we really do. We really do. They're not the only people we need. Again, if you want to clean or you want to drive a bus, we got a spot for you here in the WUSD. And unless anybody has any questions, that's the end of my report.
Anything for the superintendent? All right. Then we will move on to fiscal management.
Okay, so we had our meeting on December 15th. The entire committee was present, along with Dr. Shug, myself, Steve Kaufeld, and Tony. We had our payment and variance reports, well, almost the entire variance report. I sent that to the committee afterwards. We discussed a few items on the payment report as well, and the variance report. I'm going to continue to work on a memo to summarize that better for our committee. We did bring forward to the committee a debt refinance proposal from one particular institution, Elders Public Finance. While the numbers look really good in order to refinance some debt, hopefully before we see interest rates rise, we are going to grab some additional information from some other public finance firms to take a look at their fee structures in order to move forward with a debt refinance that is best for Watertown. But more than likely, a debt refinance will occur here sometime in the late winter. We discussed the air handling unit at Webster. We got a very robust bid package from about 4 different vendors. And we are recommending tonight that we go with the low bid from Ahern, which you should see in the board packet. This was really good news from a financial standpoint. We had originally thought that this particular project could be anywhere in the low to mid 300,000s. And going through this process and utilizing an outside consultant with really no skin in the game as to whether we do the project or not, we ended up getting a bid package back at around 186. And that's what we're voting on tonight. And we'll use ESSER 2 funds to cover this particular expenditure. So that frees up more dollars for other things. You will see excuse me, a door replacement purchase tonight in your board packet as well for proposal or for vote. Currently, we have 2 bids, and so the resolution is for a cost not to exceed the current low bid, but we have another vendor that we're going to be reaching out to for a 3rd price, and then we'll let the finance committee know whether that fell in below the bid or not, at the lowest bid that we currently have. Finally, tonight you're going to see a proposal for a new fire alarm panel at the high school. You're only seeing 1 bid for this, as this fire panel is proprietary to Johnson Controls. The fire panel, the committee asked, when was this fire panel put in? It was original with the building in 1994. And so it is out of date. We are no longer able to get parts for it if it fails, and you really can't have your fire alarm panel fail. So we're gonna, hopefully you can vote on this to upgrade that fire panel moving forward. We also discussed the damaged furniture at the high school. The good news is that we do have a current proposal to replace all the damaged furniture at the high school. That's going to be below the insurance quote that's going forward to the insurance company. However, we are going to get some additional bids just to ensure that the proposal that we currently have is in line and isn't out of step with our needs. So we want to make sure that that comes to the committee and to the board in January in order to make sure that that furniture gets here in the summer. And then you saw the ESSER presentation tonight, which we had discussed briefly at the committee. And you're going to see some additional pieces of that come forward throughout January. And as Tony said, it's a state thing that we need to get this initial proposal in within the next couple months, late February, early March. Anything else, Doug?
No, I just want to thank you for your extra effort on the bid package for the Webster handling unit and coming up with that solution to go with a contractor. Good job.
Thanks.
Other comments or questions on that report? Tina?
I would just question the next meeting. Please. Is during the board. Or during the board thing in Milwaukee. What's it called?
Convention?
There you go. Thank you.
Oh,
Yeah, we might need to
Yeah.
move it. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Good catch.
All right. Nothing else? Then we will move on to HR. Thank you, Mike.
HR committee met December 13th at 5:30.
The full committee was there. Jennifer Baki, Paul Vanden Langenberg, and Tina Johnson. We were also treated with the presence of our board president, Tony Arnett, and Mike Williamson, our financial director. We went through the review of staff appointments and resignations. You'll find those on the consent agenda this evening. We reviewed the school calendar, and there were some concerns brought up with that, which we will be discussing at a resolution later in the meeting. We were notified that there has been union recertification. Election results came in for our staff, and the nutritional support staff for WEAC Region 7 bargaining unit did not receive enough votes to continue in that, and we were notified by the Wisconsin Employment Relations Commission that the collective bargaining unit has been decertified. That leaves us with the ULE Education Association, WEAC 7, our staff, our teaching staff, and the clerical staff as the two represented bodies in our district. Compensation Review Committee update. They met on the 16th. I haven't heard anything more about that. I don't know, Margaret, if you want to elaborate, or we're going to leave that till the committee meeting next month.
We had a meeting related to the outcome of the survey. The consultant was there to report to the committee, the outcome of the survey. And we'll add more substance to that. Hopefully at next month.
Okay, fine. We also, Ms. Brady went through the open benefits enrollment update for our staff, and there has been some transitioning in there. Generally, our staff is very satisfied with the benefit package that we offer, and things are going well there. So with that, business being taken care of, meeting was adjourned. Our next meeting will be January 17th.
Any comments or questions on that report? Thank you. Hearing none, then we'll move on to Ed Services.
Ed Services met on December 7th at 7:30 at Douglas Elementary School. All committee members were present. We had 3 things on the agenda. The first one was close contact quarantine notification practices update, which we heard an even further update tonight from Cassandra. So I won't go over anything additional there. The second thing on the agenda was 4K planning and program update, again, which we heard a presentation from Jenny tonight. So there's really nothing for me to expound on for that. The third thing was we had a short update on teaching and learning report from Aaron Meyer. It was about a pilot for the Wisdom Literacy curriculum from the English Language Arts classrooms at Riverside Middle School. There's planning for a further update that will be shared with the full board in March. Aaron, is there anything you want to add to that, or pretty much?
Yep, right now they're piloting what's called Module 0, which is a beginning step, like what should the classroom look like, what are our procedures. And then after break, all of the ELA programs will be piloting a module, going through the whole process of actual book study and what they're doing. And they're very excited. And I can't thank them enough. These are difficult times with not a lot of extra time on their hands. And we've got some great training and support. And we're going to continue to have bi-weekly check-ins with support people as they're doing the pilot. So if questions come up, they can get those questions answered.
Thank you. Anything you want to add, Dave?
Just one thing quickly. Resolution 9076 is in the wake of last month's Ed Services Committee meeting when Mr. Domer and Mr. Bartley presented new course proposals to the committee in tech and social studies respectively. And those course additions were part of your packet that appeared on this agenda. So that's coming
With that, we adjourned at 9:30. Our next meeting will be Tuesday, January 11th at 7:30. Do we know where that's going to be at, Dave?
Either, more than likely Riverside, but stay tuned.
All right, thank you, Paul. Comments or questions on that report? Hearing none, we'll move on to planning.
Thank you. The planning committee met on December 8th. Meeting started at 8:30. Committee members present were Dave Smith, Katie Najarian, and myself. Doug Will was unable to join us, but President Arnett joined us as well as Mr. Vitale and Hassan. So the first thing that we talked about was the gallery walk that took place during the last board meeting. I think there was a general feeling of a resounding success and not enough time. So one of the efforts of continuous improvement is to look ahead and see how to maybe turn that into 2 board meetings, so we're not as rushed. And also the idea of perhaps getting some of the presentations in advance so we can have more conversation and two-way streets. But the general opinion was that it was a great success and deeply appreciated. We did talk about, as a new committee with a new strategic plan coming out, how we want to manage strategic plan reporting. So Dr. Shuck gave us some good overviews of how she deploys the plan. And it is something that we will continue to refine during this first year of the new strategic plan, how to stay informed about the progress monitoring on the plan. We also then had a really good discussion on the implementation of the plan and what are the right data points for a board level overview of it. And really wanting to see some leading indicators. So Dr. Shug is going to talk to administrators and come up with some suggestions on leading indicators moving forward. So during this first year, we're again putting some meat on the bones of the strategic plan and understanding the best way that we as a committee can function. So correspondingly, there was also a discussion that we should probably have some type of annual strategic plan retreat. But during this first year, when things are just getting up and running, it doesn't make much sense, but certainly something that we would look at in the second and third year. And there was good discussion that strategic plan retreat and review really needs to be early on in the calendar year. So, in that February timeframe, so that we can again get ahead of all the planning that takes place so that when summer comes, you really understand where the board is going and gives the superintendent and her administrators time to respond accordingly when the new fiscal year rolls around July 1st. We also, as all the committees in support of the policy committee reviewing board operations during the upcoming months, we spent a few minutes reviewing in support of the board policy on committees, our planning committee job description, so to speak, and we will also revisit that again. The first draft was created but needs more work in requested continuous improvement, and that next meeting will be in February because we are alternating every 2 months between policy and planning. So January will be policy. Any additions, Dr. Shuck?
We did also talk about having a June board retreat for
thank you.
board development. That would be when the new board is elected in April, and that might be a really good time to help us get to know one another and to share some board practices and board development pieces.
Anybody else that was present would like to add anything?
Any comments or questions? On the report? Thank you. And we will move on to the consent agenda, resolution 9069. Tonight's consent agenda includes meeting minutes, committee summaries, personnel staffing, and the approval of bills. There are no policies, either first or second reading in tonight's consent agenda. Do I hear a motion on resolution 9069? So moved.
Second.
Moved by Steve, seconded by Jennifer. Comments or questions on the motion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Tina Johnson,
Yes.
Steve Caulfield,
Yes.
Katie Najarian,
Yes.
David Schrader,
Yes.
David Smith,
Yes.
Paul Van Langenberg,
Yes.
Doug Will,
Yes.
Tony Arnett,
Yes,
Jennifer Hudson.
Yes.
and the motion carries. Next, we'll move to our action items. The first is resolution 9071 for full day 4K 2022-2023 school year. Again, this is the proposal to add up to 3 sections based upon enrollment. Do I hear a motion on resolution 9071?
Second.
Moved by Paul, seconded by David. Comments or questions on the motion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Tina Johnson,
Yes.
Steve Caulfield,
Yes.
Katie Najarian,
Yes.
David Schrader,
Yes.
David Smith,
Yes.
Paul Van Langenberg,
Yes.
Doug Will,
Yes.
Tony Arnett,
Yes,
Jennifer Bach.
Yes.
and the motion carries. Next is resolution 9072, the school calendar for the 2022-2023 school year. Do I hear a motion on 9072?
So moved.
I'll second.
Moved by Steve, seconded by Paul. I'll just make a brief comment alluding to the discussion that was made at the HR meeting. There was a question as to reflecting on this year's experience with the Ready, Set, Go conferences, and if we wanted to take some different direction with that, did that cause any potential issues with this calendar as proposed? And I received assurances from the superintendent that approving this calendar does not by default mean we're going with the same practice on the Ready, Set, Go. That's still very much open for discussion. Any comments or questions on the motion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Tina Johnson,
Yes.
Steve Caulfield,
Yes.
Katie Najarian,
Yes.
David Schrader,
Yes.
David Smith,
Yes.
Paul Van Langenberg,
Yes.
Doug Will,
Yes.
Tony Arnett,
Yes,
Jennifer Bach.
Yes.
and the motion carries. Next is resolution 9073. This is for the replacement of the air handling unit at Webster Elementary School. Do I hear a motion?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Jennifer, seconded by Tina. Again, as mentioned during the report on fiscal, this is the replacement of that air handling unit along with some associated distribution units. And that unit has reached the end of its life. I will also mention, though, that because of the change in the process that Mr. Williamson did, we are seeing a substantial reduction in the cost of this project. It was originally estimated at more than $300,000. It's coming in less than $200,000. Any comments or questions on the motion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Tina Johnson,
Yes.
Steve Caulfield,
Yes.
Katie Najarian,
Yes.
David Schrader,
Abstain.
David Smith,
Yes.
Paul Van Langenberg,
Yes.
Doug Will,
Yes.
Tony Arnett,
Yes,
Jennifer Bach.
Yes.
and the motion carries. Next is resolution 9074. This is the replacement of entrance doors at Webster Elementary School. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Moved by David. Is there a second? Seconded by Tina. Comments or questions on the motion?
Did we get a confirmation of what specific doors these were ever discussed?
I show you the ones on 10th Street, the 2 exits
On both wings.
I know they both come right out on 10th. Yeah, Out of the 70s when the college is down there. They are just rusted out.
Right, any further comments or questions on the motion?
We are getting one more bid for this, correct? It was not to exceed that, or I believe we're getting one more.
Mike,
Yep, we still need to get one more quote. So this is just a not to exceed at this moment with the 2 quotes.
Any other comments or questions on the motion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Tina Johnson,
Yes.
Steve Coffell,
Yes.
Katie Majorian,
Yes.
David Schrader,
Yes.
David Smith,
Yes.
Paul Van Langenberg,
Yes.
Doug Will,
Yes.
Tony Arnett,
Yes,
Jennifer Beck.
Yes.
and the motion carries. Resolution 9075, this is the replacement of the alarm control panel here at the high school, as described in the presentation for the fiscal report. Do I hear a motion on 9075?
So moved.
Second. Moved by Doug, seconded by Katie. Comments or questions on the motion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Tina Johnson,
Yes.
Steve Coffell,
Yes.
Katie Majorian,
Yes.
David Schrader,
Yes.
David Smith,
Yes.
Paul Van Langenberg,
Yes.
Doug Will,
Yes.
Tony Arnett,
Yes,
Jennifer Beck.
Yes.
and the motion carries. And our last resolution is 9076, which approves the additions of several courses to the high school program for the 2022-2023 school year, again, dependent upon enrollment. Do I hear a motion on 9076?
So
Moved by Katie, is there a second?
Yes.
Second by Jennifer. Comments or questions on the motion?
I have a comment, or a question, I guess. On the 2 courses for the AP Human Geography. And I just noticed that, and I believe Dave can talk about this, that we have those listed on AP under our eCampus. And that students are taking the 2 courses under eCampus, and if there isn't enough on a regular, students to have it during our school, can they go to eCampus and take the course there? Rather than setting up a whole course.
yeah, that's a great question. Dave, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, our parents will request, or our guidance counselors will request, or even students request access to digital courses that are offered in a face-to-face setting, or in some cases not, but we do avail those courses to our kids, and they could take the course that's listed in our eCampus course, but wouldn't mean they're eCampus kids, but they're just accessing that digital content.
And if we didn't have the enrollments that would dictate running that course, we would absolutely, each counselor meets with the students who have been enrolled and would provide some alternative options, which would certainly include that campus option. It's a great question, Doug.
I have a comment. My sophomore just asked me the other day, or rather told me he wishes that there were AP courses of this nature, and by golly, it's not urgent. So
Way to make it happen, Kate.
Right.
I myself took a cultural geography class in college. One of the things you can learn in that kind of class is not only how we've been influenced by geography, but how we influence geography. So that's one of the key things to remember is our major interstate highways create these heat rhythms. There's a reason why weather is different north of 94 than it is south of 94. This happens in a number of places in the US. Where I was back in Ohio, same thing, Interstate 7. It creates actually a dividing line and weather patterns behave differently.
Which side of 70 were you with? What side of the-
Next item.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And of course, for America, for our nation, the history of our development is around the rivers. Very strong. We grew up around rivers. Hence Watertown.
So I have one more, as far as the AP government in politics, do we have a teacher that I know Mr. Thorpe was for the AP Human Geography? Is there, we have a candidate for the other course? Or?
Yes, it's that hard, right, Kelly?
Yeah, I mean, they're all certified to teach any of the courses in the social studies program. At this point, I don't think they determined that. I guess it would be either Mr. Schleicher, Mr. Suski, or Mr. Bannerman. But Josh, if you're on the call here, maybe you can confirm what you guys have discussed at the department level. But if the numbers are there, we'll have it filled.
And then the follow-up on that, as far as there's any professional development that needs to be done to be able to teach that course.
Yeah, so they'll attend the AP Summer Institute where they'll get some training, as is the case with any new AP course, or even teachers that have taught AP courses in the past. So great opportunities in the summer, and also to network with teachers internally as well to get prepared.
All right, any other questions or comments on the motion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Tina Johnson,
Yes.
Steve Coppell,
Yes.
Katie Najarian,
Yes.
David Schrader,
Yes.
David Smith,
Yes.
Paul Van Langenberg,
Yes.
Doug Will,
Yes.
Tony Annette,
Yes,
Jennifer Beck.
Yes.
and the motion carries. All right, this brings us to the second time on our agenda for public input. Again, people present in the room or online. Online, please use the raise your hand feature. And if recognized, please give your name and address and keep your remarks brief. Is there anyone who'd like to address the board at this time? Do not see anyone in the room raising their hand or online. With that in mind, I will then entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. Moved by Doug, seconded by Dave. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? You stand adjourned. Thank you, everyone.